you ready to boost your confidence when selling so you're able to close more deals? Nikki Rausch will show you how to build a foundation of skills and a mindset that creates sales success without feeling pushy or salesy and without fear of rejection. She is a sales strategist and coach with more than 25 years of sales experience and is master certified in neuro-linguistic programming. This is a radically different approach to selling. It's a no sleaze, no slime, and no stress approach to building your business. This is Sales Maven. Here's Nikki.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to the Sales Maven Show. I'm your host, Nikki Rausch. Today's episode is part of our Mastering Excellence series. This is where I bring a guest on and we talk about something that they have mastered and we figure out their structure behind it. This comes from my background in neuro-linguistic programming, where we learn that there truly is a structure to excellence. And if you can ask questions and listen for the structure and the answers that the person gives, you can take that structure and apply it to your own life. I'm very excited because today's guest is Kris Ward. Now, if you haven't met Kris yet, or if you're not listening to our podcast yet, here's a little bit about Kris. She is the leading authority in scaling your business. Kris is the founder of Win the Hour, Win the Day philosophy. She helps entrepreneurs create their WIN team. WIN stands for What is Next team, using her signature super toolkits so that you can get your idea to execution. After the loss of her husband, Kris returned full-time to her work as a marketing strategist. She was thankful to see that her business had not only survived her absence, but was growing. And now Kris has completely changed the landscape for entrepreneurs by sharing the successful practices that allowed her absence. Kris has been interviewed by one of the original sharks from Shark Tank, Kevin Harrington, and ABC's Secret Millionaire, James Malinchak. She has been featured on award-winning podcasts, radio, and TV shows throughout the world. And you can hear Kris on her own podcast, Win the Hour, Win the Day, where she has engaging conversations with dynamic guests covering a variety of business topics, and so that you can get your next win now. So that's about Kris. Kris, welcome to the show, friend.
I am so excited to be here, Nikki. This is going to be all kinds of fun.
I am so thrilled that you wanted to do this. And the topic that we're going to talk about today is maximizing productivity, because this is your wheelhouse, big time. And I think most of us are always wanting to be more productive and use our time and our energy wisely. So I'm excited to dig into this conversation with you.
Yeah, it's really interesting because to me, this is like the foundation, like don't build a house on sand. So productivity, I kind of would say it's my wheelhouse, but it's sort of like, I don't even know. It's like, maybe give up the McDonald's meals if you're going to start going to the gym all the time. So productivity is definitely something we do, but it is the smallest part of what we do, but it does apparently have a big impact because we really lean into having what we talk about, your WIN team and super toolkits. Mm-hmm. But this stuff, productivity, I think is really worth pulling back and expanding because so many people misconstrue that with going faster or being annoyingly organized or just some productivity hacks. And none of that works. We've just been misinformed and not trained to any capacity how to be effective with our time.
Well, exactly. So yes. And thank you for breaking it down like that so clearly. So I want to just go through these NLP questions with you. Okay. And I'm just going to be looking for some structure and I'll comment on it a little bit to the audience. So the first question that I have for you is, imagine that I was going to stand in for you for the day. So I get to be Kris for the day, which would be exciting for me. How would I have to think and how would I have to behave in order to really maximize my productivity?
Wow, that's a deep question.
I know.
Okay. So again, I'm going to pick on some of the words you use if you don't mind.
No,
so
please.
Maximizing productivity really just constantly sets us all up to fail. It did for me for many years because I confused that with maximize, go faster, go harder. Mm-hmm. And I call myself my term is a recovering rushaholic. So I had to learn how to slow down to speed up. And that, as my husband used to say, he'd see me ramping up. Like once I got busier and busier, I expected like get out of my way or I will step over your body. Like I'm going fast. Right. And that's where we get pushed into productivity. And what does productivity mean? Right. And then it's just about results. What are you producing? Where creativity is really where a lot of our time should be spent as being an entrepreneur. So I think it's a false sense to be leaning into that word, although I use it because people are Googling it. But productivity is something I want to sort of redefine. So what I guess I would say is, I am very purposeful about where my energy goes. And I think about energy very differently now. I didn't years ago, because I would read these studies about, the brain and how it works and stress and how it thinks and create ideas. And I used to think, I know they were done at Stanford and Harvard, but they don't know how ambitious I am and they don't know how fast I can go. So somehow these studies my brain was outside all these studies that they did on humans. Somehow I was the exception to this. I am that special, right?
You're the special snowflake.
Yeah, I am a special snowflake that I hear what you're saying. And I know you have science behind it, but that's not me, right?
Okay.
So let me break down some of the science that I was resistant to for years and that other people also are. First of all, decision fatigue is a very powerful thing. We make a lot of decisions in a day, right from what to have for breakfast, what to wear, all these other things. And there's just it's so taxing on the brain, decision fatigue. It's like having a whole bunch of apps open on your phone. It wears down your battery quicker, right? Even restaurants that have less on the menu item have higher per table sales because you have to make less decisions. Okay.
Yeah.
So decision fatigue is a big deal. Where people bleed out in their energy management very first thing in the day is they go to their email where, first of all, they're going there fear-based and looking for problems. And secondly, now their brain is going in all different directions, making decisions, whipping through emails. When in fact, that first hour of the day, and even for me, sometimes I have to use my little toes and dig in, that's where you should be doing work that requires the most focus or the most creativity because your brain is the freshest. Now, I don't even need you here, Nikki, because I'm going to argue against myself because other people have given me this argument. So enjoy the ride.
Okay. I'm just taking notes like crazy. So perfect.
Some people will say to me, oh no, I do my best work at night. Yeah. I disagree.
Okay.
You think you do because you have gotten through the muddle of the day and you finally got everything behind you. And maybe even, you've got your family fed and watered. And now you feel like you can finally get a breath because you can focus on your stuff. Okay. That's taking the remnants of the leftovers of the day. And it's just not scientifically possible that you are the freshest at night. You're just not. You are operating out of a fear-based situation. So the first hour of the day is your maximum, your golden hour. And that's when you want to do the work that requires the most attention or focus, or you're creating something. Like, heaven help me, I thought I'd never do this, but I'm getting into TikTok now. So I had to do this morning, I had to do a video and monkey around with it and do it. That's the first hour I did because it's new to me. So picture me on my phone, my tongue hanging out, trying to do this. That's where my first hour, and it's very tempting to drop that and say nuts to that. This is taking me forever. I'm going to go do some work, right?
Yeah.
Please give me an excuse to stop doing this because it's taking a lot of attention, right?
Okay.
So that first hour is your sweet spot. Also know that when you do stuff there that's important, then you don't carry it in the back of your brain all day. I don't know if you've ever done this, say, like I exercise in the morning, but there was a period of time where I was doing exercise that I didn't enjoy. Like everyone said running was good for you. I hated it, but I thought it was good for you. So I did it. Right. So I would run at night. Well, what that meant was all day long, I was carrying that in my head going, okay, do I have to run? Oh, could it be raining? Maybe it's raining. I didn't eat well. I was kind of tired last night. Maybe I don't have to run. So I'm carrying that all day long or anxious about, I got to get out because it's going to rain, whatever it is. Right. So once you do that thing in the morning, then you're free and it's done. So when I was writing my book, When the Hour, When the Day, I had to write 5 pages every day. That was the first hour in the morning. Then no matter what happened, when I'm doing emails, if I have less time, I can whip through the emails quicker. I don't have to write a book. I can then carry my routine the rest of the day on less energy if the book took more out of me because all the other stuff. So where you tend to say, I'm going to write that book at the end of the day, when I get my work done, that will never happen.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yes. So Okay. So I'm going to change the term from maximizing productivity. And I'm going to ask you, do you like this term better? This is something that I think I wrote down that you said. So correct me if I'm wrong. Purposeful energy.
Yeah. Energy management or purposeful energy. Where does it go?
Where does it go? Okay.
Yeah. And be really mindful of that. So another thing is attention residue. So if you can imagine, I've done this in videos, imagine shaking some shaving cream and then you spray it on the wall and you got the shaving cream all over the wall. Mm-hmm. And then with your left hand, you're going to wipe that off. You're obviously going to have some shaving cream left behind. Mm-hmm. That's attention residue. When your brain goes in different directions for having to make decisions like your email and other tasks like that, you don't bring all of it back. There's a stickability that's left over there. Okay. So let's say there's 10 units of concentration. You go and make a decision, even on a quick email, and you come back, you only come back with 7.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So now we got decision fatigue and we got attention residue. And like, no wonder you're a little rattled by 10:30 in the morning, eating cupcakes by 2:00 in the afternoon, right?
Yeah.
So we're wearing down our brain. Very similar to someone on my team, Evan. He's got a renewed flavor on fitness, and he was exercising at home when his gym was closed and all this other stuff. And he's like, "Well, Kris, I'm trying to be fit." And he's like, I bought these weights, but I don't have a big enough place. I can't just keep buying new weights. Like, this is crazy, right? Because he's asking me about fitness. And I said, okay, so you've got those weights, you got 20-pound weights. Okay, yeah, well, now they're not hard. What do I do? Well, why don't you do 25 push-ups before you lift those weights? Oh, all right. So now those weights are a little heavier and he's a little tired and he doesn't have to buy new weights. So I was managing his energy to get a bigger workout, but that's very similar to what we do with our workday. We're not purposeful about our energy management. And then the false sense we get is racing the clock, time management. You can't manage time. It's the amount of time you have is it. Mm-hmm. And being productive, I think, gives you a false sense of purpose.
Okay. So if I'm standing in for you for the day, yeah. And I want to make sure that I'm having purposeful energy, that I'm minimizing my decision fatigue, minimizing my attention residue. Am I using those terms right?
Yeah.
Then how would I have to behave like you?
Well, first of all, you would love my day because it is very detailed on the calendar. Now, not heavily detailed, because I believe in 1 hour blocks. So I'm not about, making a calendar just for making a calendar, but the calendar is the most underused tool that any entrepreneur could have. Think of it like your time bank account. So what happens is so many entrepreneurs only put stuff on their calendar, like outside appointments. So even if you don't want to go to the dentist, no matter how much it hurts, it costs, whatever, it's on your calendar, you'll get there.
Yeah.
But your work is not on there. Even the stuff you do every day, like your emails, is not on there. So what happens is that's very similar to, let's say I said, Nikki, hey, and I'm looking at your bills and you say, yeah, that's my car payment though. It comes out every month. I know about that. Well, the money's still gone though, Nikki. Like, we can't spend that money, right? Yeah, the money's gone. So that's the same thing with your calendar. You do things every day that people don't put on their calendar. They don't put their work on the calendar. So then you walk into the day and you might think you have 8 hours, but in fact you have 6. So in mine, you're going to see a purposeful energy management. Okay, I have to do this first thing in the morning. It's the focus. Also, prior to that, I will tell you that most successful, highly successful people in the world exercise or meditate in the morning. I do both. And then I come in and I do my hour of whatever the zone is that I'm working on right now, that 1 hour. Then I have little 15-minute meetings with my team, scrum meetings. Then I have lunch, and you do not eat lunch at your desk. If you are sitting there like I did for many years, throwing food down your gullet with your left hand, which by the way is never a salad when you're shoveling it in with your left hand, answering emails and holding your other shoulder on the phone while you do 3 things at once and think I can chew, that doesn't take brain power. That's a sign for help. Maybe listen to the end of this show, or maybe just go get help right now and reach out to us. But so you need to have a mental break for lunch. Now, I do sometimes when I'm watching training videos that I have already watched, and learned from and made notes, I will sometimes have that at a different station, and I'll have lunch and I'll watch refreshing my memory on sales language or something that I find entertaining. So I will watch that, but it's not work. Sometimes I could watch whatever, something funny on YouTube if I want to do that, right? Rather than just sit there and look at the wall, but I'm not working at my desk, shoveling food down my throat. I'm having a break. Okay.
I love that.
That's really important, the break, right?
Yeah.
And so and me and my team are set up that we are not other people's interruptions. So if I have something like, I got to ask Evan about that, then that goes into my Scrum notes for tomorrow, even though most of the stuff is taken care of with our super toolkits and how we communicate to each other. But maybe something special has come up, like, I want to, whatever, something unique. Then I'll make a note. So we don't just stop everything doing and reach out to other people. So you will be doing one thing at a time, which I cannot tell you how many years it took me to learn how to do that. So that is no small feat. And you will learn to be mindful when you start rushing, because I'm still a recovering rushaholic. I'm nowhere near at all that I used to be, but one thing at a time will allow you to show up purposefully and be really effective with whatever you're doing.
Awesome. I love that. Okay. So then what are your goals? What are Kris's goals when it comes to this purposeful energy, this, minimizing these things that are taking away from you, really accomplishing what you want? What are those goals?
Well, my goals are whatever my goals are at the time. So back up for a second. So right now our goal is we're working really heavily on the winner's circle. I want, business should be fun. It should support your life, not consume it. And I want that to be more approachable, a different entry level of investment for more people. So we're now doing this winner's circle where we're going to have hopefully 50 or 100 people. And there's just unbelievable bonuses around it. And you're going to learn everything I do in my semi-private and private coaching, just with more people in the room. It's virtual. That's fine. Great. So we're really on a mission to create this movement and reach more people. So that's my goal right now. We just started it. But any goal I have, which here's what I would tell you is you want to work backwards to that goal. So this is something we all do every day in our personal life, but we don't do it in our business. So here's a quick example. I don't know this about you. Do you have kids, Nikki?
I do not have kids. No.
Okay, good for you. So you're getting rest. So I see this a lot with parents that have kids in sports. So let's say they've got all right, Steven's hockey game is at 2:00. It's an hour away. So we have to leave at 1 and traffic could be whatever. So whatever, we should leave a little early. Plus he's now got to eat because it's lunchtime. And then so all of a sudden you're getting prepared to do something at 11 o'clock to be somewhere at 2, right? You do that kind of stuff. So we do that in a personal life. Maybe you're going to your mom's birthday party and you're like, okay, and then boom, 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 I have to leave at 4 to be there at 7, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So we do that. We work backwards. So when I was writing my book, I met with the editor who I wanted very much to do my editing. And she said, okay, you got to get to me by June or I'm booked for September. So then I did the math. And in order for me to get the book to her in June, I realized I had to do 5 pages per day, Monday to Friday. Now, some days I didn't feel like I had those 5 pages in me. And what happened was the old me would have been like, oh, okay, I'm really tired. But tomorrow I'll become so rested, the pages will fly. They'll fly. Tomorrow is going to be a magical day, right? It's like a diet. You always do better in the diet in the future than you did, right? Let's start diet on Wednesday. Come on, people, don't be crazy, right? So, but where I work backwards and said I have to do 5 pages per day, I really sobered up quickly and realized if I don't do my 5 pages today, because I don't feel like I have it in me, I'm not likely to have 10 in me tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
So my working backwards really woke me up and kept me on track. So then too, you could see when you're off track really quickly, right? And versus if you had a cold and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm out a couple of days of cold. And next week, now you realize, where often you have an ambition and you don't really measure it in any capacity. So you don't know, are you 3 weeks off or you don't know till you get to that date. This is why I don't love when people talk about goals. Well, this is our goal for June 1st. Great. Well, how will you know when you're off course until you get to June 1st?
Right.
Wow, we really thought we'd have this done by June 1st and we don't have I can't tell you how not done this is, right? So working backwards really quickly sees where you are and so you can course correct. So that's where I encourage you is when you have, plans or goals or ambitions, work backwards so you can monitor them. Again, you cannot improve what you don't measure, but it will give you a realistic view of where you are on those goals.
I love this. I think, well, one, I didn't comment before on the way you broke down what you do in the first hour is so crucial. And then how you broke down your schedule. And, if I'm behaving like you, and this idea of being really specific about what's on your calendar and sticking to that and following it. And then this idea of working backwards seems like gold nugget right there. Right. And so that makes me think of, I have certain sales goals every month and year and all of that. And I actually do work backwards when it comes to my sales goal, because I'm always counting like, okay, so how far away am I? So let's say that my goal is 30,000 and I've sold 20,000. I have 10,000 more to sell, right? And then I can look and break that down as well as, what's going on with that. But so I love this idea of working backwards. I think it's really, really smart.
Yeah. Well, thank you. No, everybody loves to be called smart, right? So let's go with that. Let's take a moment.
You are smart.
Yeah. But I also think too, that you being into sales, you probably are shocked how many times you talk to people about, well, you have these ambitions for sales, but what are you doing about it? Right. Yeah. So I think and I don't mean to tease you, but I think you got a little inroads on that because that's the nature of what you do, some numbers, but you know yourself how many people don't even break down those numbers.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then another thing I would say too, that this is I get a pushback on that a lot. I talk about doing batch work, and then people always say, Kris, you don't understand, my business is different. I've got clients, I got whatever, you know? And so what I would say is, like today, I have 7 interviews to be on 7 different shows that are going to air throughout the year. Right. And you think, well, how do I manage 7 other people? And I'm showing up. And so I have a certain mentality today because I'm in this kind of mode, highly conversational. I'm going to be dressed a certain way. All my, everything's off. My teams know they can't reach me today for no matter what, because I'm conversing with you. Nothing. They just can't get a hold of me. Right.
Yeah. So
how do you manage that? So this is a certain focus of this day. Well, when I book these things, I book them far enough in advance so that if you ask me today, hey, Kris, can you be on my show? I'm going to book you 2 months out on a Wednesday, because then the next person asks me, now it's a month and a half and I've still given them lots of time. So you would be surprised how I could get everybody I want on that same day. So now, instead of doing, so many people do an interview before a sales call or interview after a client, and you're all over the place going in different directions, energetically, it's not effective. You're using different parts of your brain and your personality, right? Yeah. You can't go from this charming person that I'm talk, and then to sales. It just doesn't work. So people always push back and say, well, you can't batch outside appointments. Well, I do all the time. You just push them out in the calendar a little bit, and then it gives the people you're meeting with some freedom of choice. And they're like, yeah, I can do that 6 weeks from now on a Wednesday. Great. Thank you. Now I've lined up that day. These are my calls for the month.
I love this too. And I will say, this is definitely some area where I need big time improvement. And I know that when you and I were having this conversation about you coming on the podcast, we went back and forth a few times on dates and time and figuring out what was going to work, but we figured it out. And it was weeks out from, I think you've been on my calendar for at least a month, right? Maybe more, at least a month though. Yeah. So I love that. Okay. So here's my next question is, how do you know if you've gotten off track and it's kind of time to pay attention to this idea of purposeful energy? And maybe, does this ever happen to you? Like, how do you, if you get off track, what do you do to get yourself back on track?
Yeah. So that's a great question. And I really feel it now. It's kind of like, if I try to be very health focused. So it's kind of like if you're eating junk food every day, you don't notice it. But if you eat healthy all the time, and then all of a sudden you have McDonald's and you're like, oh, that was a little hard on my stomach because I'm not ready for that anymore. Right. So before, when I was what I would affectionately refer to as hysterical Kris, the first 2 years I was in business, going without sleep, they sat me down and had a nice little intervention that one cannot go 2 years without sleep and lose some of their charm. Right. So like, okay. So
I have a girlfriend that always says, I lost my personality today.
Yeah. And that goes out really quickly with the sleep. So I did all that rush. So now I can feel it really quickly. And I now focus on micro things, like little lessons I've learned where even when I got two things. One is when something comes up then that derails you, because it's all laid out in your calendar, you then take pause and say, okay, I now know what my inventory is for today. I'll have to move some stuff to tomorrow, do whatever. Like quick example is I was dealing with something on my computer. There was a computer issue. I called Apple. Surprise, surprise. It took 45 minutes. I thought it would take 5. And so the old Kris would have then went into hysterical mode and tried to outrun the rest of the day because I lost an hour. Whereas then I looked at my calendar and said, okay, I've lost an hour. What can I take off the rest of this day? Looking at my calendar because it's all there. And I will move something. So then I proceed the rest of the day being calm, not rushing everybody or adding tension in a room that they didn't do anything for. And then also it just allows my brain is clear. I can focus and still get work done. And I didn't take it. And I also won't have this flash come Wednesday where I go, oh, right, I was doing that. I was supposed to do that Monday afternoon, but I forgot because I was on the phone, blah, 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 blah. And you get to use the bathroom in the middle of the night and you have that stroke where you're like, oh, I forgot to finish that because it's on my calendar. Here's my things on calendar. I will move stuff. I stay calm. Although that all sounds like good and I'm all kind of Yoda and Zen. Listen, I'm a very flawed human being. I'm learning stuff all the time. I've also had to learn too, and I have to have a little talk with myself every once in a while. I have a scrum meeting with the team this morning. It's only gonna be 15 minutes, but I'm feeling a bit rushed. I got to get this thing. Something just popped up. Don't show up to these meetings, Kris, in a rush, because then I have people on my team that are thoughtful and smart and purposeful and the opposite of who I am. And I have learned that you can't look Evan in the eye and say, Evan, can you talk quicker? Like, because I'm in a rush and you're talking so slow.
Speed it up, Evan. Speed it up.
So I have learned that does not warm somebody's heart.
No, of course
not.
And
so then you have to take time and go, maybe I should apologize for that. Or, they've all been trained. They will call me out. And Evan will say something like, it's not what you said to Kazel, but your tone was, I'm like, oh, I was rushed. I slept out. Like, because here's what I learned. I learned that I used to be able to think that I could put on a smile and walk into a room. And there's these hamsters in my brain going in all different directions. And all the file drawers were open. And I thought if I put a smile on and just made some notes and pretended to stay calm, nobody would catch on. But they smell it off you. And you feel the blood rushing through your veins and you're not fooling anybody. So I've learned that doesn't work either. And it just doesn't aid to your effectiveness or your communication or anything. So then you really, when you're not in constant hysterical mode, then you start to see the subtleties of the little things you're missing during the day. And that becomes even more and more effective.
And so that was gold. Thank you. And I just want to comment on this idea of when something does disrupt your schedule. You talked about how because everything is so clearly laid out on your calendar, how you can look and go, okay, so I need to figure out how to get this hour. So I've got to move something, not try to squish everything in. And then show up and not be the best version of yourself for rushing, whatever that is.
My apologies. Sorry.
No,
rushing is a surface level thing. So then you skim over stuff and you're rushing it. And that doesn't, and for a lot of people, they wouldn't have stuff on their calendar. So then they just remember a week later what they dropped the ball on, right?
Yes,
Where is that? Whereas I can reorganize my inventory and say, well, you know what, this thing from 4 to 5, I wanted to get that done today, but so-and-so's not even going to be here till Thursday. I can move that to Wednesday. So then it lets you know where your inventory is.
Love this. Okay. So here's my last question about this before I go into, I forgot to ask you if I can do a little extra section at the end so we can learn more about you. I usually ask that before I start the recording, but we're rolling right into this. Okay. So how do you know when to stop? How do you know, like, okay, this time I'm done?
Yeah, I'll tell you everything here. So this is a problem that I had in the beginning when I was turning it around with my calendar, and my clients have this a lot too, that we're so stimulated by, just constant stimulation of, okay, endorphins, getting this high and getting things done and productivity and stuff. So I've had to learn really hard that here's my clock and it stops at 5. And what happens for me in the beginning and for a lot of my clients is they're so used to feeling awful that then when they're like, Kris, I came into work all last week and in the morning I felt refreshed. And I left today at 5 and I felt great. This is great. And so the next week, there might be some project comes up that you're really interested in, you're super excited about. Don't confuse the fact that just because you love what you do doesn't mean it's okay to do it late into the night. Mm-hmm. Hello. And then you think like a little addict who says, oh, I used to have a drinking problem, but I went 5 years ago drinking. Maybe I can have one. So then you go, you know what? I haven't stayed late in a really long time. I think I'm just going to stay an hour or two and do this tonight. Well, then what happens is I finish work at 7. So now the hours to my bedtime are totally different. Like they're not 5 hours, they might be 3. And so that affects your sleep and you have a little bit of hangover the next morning. Yeah. So I see the signs really quickly. And I'll be really totally honest with you. After my husband passed away, like, especially at the end when he was, needed some support and was ill, I had like an insane amount to do. And so suddenly I had a lot of free time on my hands. And so, I would throw that into work. And all of a sudden weekends were really overwhelming to me. Like, I had all weekend to do nothing. And I was used to having a big family and always having birthdays at my house. Like I had a very busy house and a very big life. So I started working Sundays going, well, I can't just sit here and I don't want to in the grief. And then my team sat me down with a little intervention and said, like, what happens to you is by the time we hit the floor Monday afternoon, it's like Wednesday for you because you put in 8 hours on Sunday. Mm-hmm. It's not good. It's not good for us. Yeah. So they, and I will also say that my husband was very big. Here's all my secrets. When I was in hysterical mode in the beginning, where I was working day and night and day, and he would say, you're always stealing from sleep. And there were some times where in the middle of the night where you wake up, you couldn't sleep and you think, well, I'm just laying here doing nothing. I'll just get up and do a little bit of work, which again, apparently does not make you the best person the next day in the afternoon. Right. So then we had a firm talking to, and he would get up in the middle of the night. And if he went to use the bathroom, he would check my feet. And if my feet were cold, he could tell I was out of bed. So I know this is crazy, right?
Smart.
I know. So the rule was, I don't care what happens to you. Cause he would say, you can't fall back asleep sitting up looking at a computer. Okay. Wise ass. Right. Yeah. So I was not allowed to get out of bed. Like I'm 5 years old. I was not allowed to get out of bed at all whatsoever. So then he wasn't around. And so Evan had to kick in and say, look, this beast needs to be tamed. And I felt I had a good reason. I have too much time on my hands on the weekend. I really love what I do. It'll get me ahead of the week. That was all good on paper. Hello, write it down. Grieving person. This is a good excuse. Yeah. And it did not serve me or the company. So you have to put things in play, just like I tell you to treat yourself like a business athlete. Just like Olympian doesn't be going out at 2-3 o'clock in the morning saying, well, I've trained for 4 years. I'm in good shape. The Olympics are 3 weeks away. I think I'm going to start training extra hours because they're just 3 weeks away. You have to be fed and watered and take care. This is your machine, and your brain needs to be at optimum clarity and creation. So you have to have boundaries and look at that. So it's not a matter of knowing when to stop. You have to have a plan of purpose and effectiveness and energy management that you look at and go, okay, great. I know I can't do 4 sales calls in a row. It's not like doing 4 interviews. So you have to manage your energy.
Okay. That was such a great answer to this. And thank you so much for what you've shared, because I feel like there's so much here for each one of us, hopefully, to walk away. I know for me personally, I'll be walking away thinking about batching. I'll be thinking about, even when I'm like, I'm just going to do this, one extra little project, and then it turns into 2 hours, later, and I'm into the night, and like, that's not really going to allow for me to show up to be my best self the next day and all of that. So that was so great. Thank you so much for this. Okay. So as we wrap this up, I do have this little section so people can get to know a little bit about Kris. So here's my first question for you. I'm going to hit you with a zinger right off the bat. What's your guilty pleasure?
I don't know if I have anything that's guilty.
I know. That's okay.
I don't have anything that's really guilty.
Okay.
I love to bake, but I bake with really healthy stuff. So, but there's only so much you can eat. So I do have neighbors that are very generous and will take my goods. So I just have a lot of pleasures, nothing that I feel too guilty about.
Okay. What's your biggest pleasure right now? What's bringing
you know what?
them
This will probably surprise you. I am so deep into Formula One. I can't even talk about it.
Really? That does surprise me.
I know. I watched a Netflix series. I love anything about behind the scenes. Anything done well comes down to the machinery of business, right? Even Olympic athletes, that's really business.
Yeah.
So it's so fascinating to me that they could have all this like signage, cars, everything in Australia one weekend, and then New Zealand the next weekend, or some, like Iraq or something, right? So I got hooked on this Netflix series, and then I started watching the races. And this really ties into business because, first of all, I thought if you told me I would watch somebody go around in a circle racing, I'm like, you don't know me. But secondly, what I learned is, just like business, it's not about speed. It's about strategy. None of it is really about speed. I'm going to tell you, start talking, whatever, undercut, when they go in for their pit, there's all these things with tire. There's this strategy that is really has nothing to do with the speed. And I find it fascinating. So I'm like, I cannot tell you, I'm living in Formula One right now. It's shocking myself.
Okay. So now, because you shared this, I have to ask you, because I think about this, I heard this somewhere or read this somewhere. I can't even remember, but when they talk about, so how you tie Formula One back to business, I think about racing, and I think about how it relates to business in the like reaching your goal, being successful, being the best. That when it comes to racing, a lot of times most races are won by like 1/10 of a second, that it's not about being so far ahead of the pack. It's not about, necessarily, you're not winning by laps. You're winning by just like sometimes like a hair and whatever race. And I love that concept of like not trying to always push yourself, that you've got to, that you have to achieve something that nobody else is. You just have to be this much better than everybody behind you, and you will really stand out from the crowd.
Yeah. And there's drivers that are really popular, and they're not the ones that always win all the time either. So you still have a different brand, but you're right. Like when they go into the pit, a good pit stop is 2.8 seconds. If they get a penalty for something they did and they have to stay like a penalty, it's like a 5-second penalty. That is aging. Like, oh my gosh, these are 5 seconds. Like, what are we going to do? Are we going to come back from that? And so imagine that's your punishment. Like the first time I was watching this, I'm like, they're all up in arms for 5 seconds. What the heck's wrong with them? And now like a year later, I'm like, oh no, it's gone. Like, we're never going to make up that. Right. So you're right. You don't need to be that far ahead. And also you can be quite a successful and wealthy driver and not always be the one winning the championships, because there's different brands that do different things. So,
okay. I love this. This is so fun. All right. So here's my other question is, how do you celebrate your wins? I feel like win is your word. So I want to ask you that.
Yeah. How do I celebrate my wins? Ooh, I'm told I still struggle on that. I think anyone that's really good at what they do or passionate about what they do is all you see is the next thing. Right. Yeah. So I guess I'm really purposeful about being appreciative of everything. So I constantly look at, I work after, if we talked today about my husband, I have no interest in being like, I guess here's a lot of sharing today. It's like therapy. I guess when I was driving to the hospital with my husband and I, towards the end and we're getting, news, you're like, okay, what's going to be my pep talk on the way home? You're literally driving to the doctor's office and they could tell him he's got 3 weeks left to live. And so you're thinking, which by at one point they asked us, do we want to know? We both said without even talking to each other, no, we don't want to know. Like what, we're just going to live life. We don't want to know. But on the drive there, I'm thinking, well, what's my pep talk on the way home? Well, they say it'll be quick. Like, what the hell is that? Right. So I learned at that point in my life, all the times I thought I had a problem were not really a problem. And I promised myself I would never, ever forget what a real problem is. And so now when things happen, I look at that and say, is that really a problem? Is it an inconvenience? Is it annoying? Am I unhappy? But is this a real problem? And so that's how I look to find the happy in every moment. And so I'm always trying to be present and look at, I had a fantastic conversation with Nikki today. Isn't it wonderful that she was on my show and trusted me with her audience? I take great pride in that. So I just constantly look at whatever I call them rendezvous, whatever my rendezvous of the day were, I'm really looking for, that was great. I got to know her better. So I just try to find the happy and the joy in anything I can.
I love that answer. I want to celebrate that. Oh my gosh. Okay. You might have maybe commented on this, but I do want to ask you, what's something exciting going on in your business right now?
We're really excited about the Winner's Circle, just so we can reach more people and so that you guys can stop working so hard and grinding it out, because that's just a toxic lie. And so we really want to make a bigger impact and create a movement, because your business should support your life instead of consuming it. So we are bringing that to a less of investment than usually with the one-on-one coaching. So I'm really thrilled that we have figured that out and how we can do that. And the small group we have so far, it's just started, is really loving it. So I'm really thrilled about that.
Tell us more about the Winner's Circle. What does that entail? Who is that for? All of that good stuff.
So the Winner's Circle, usually the people I work with best are somebody who's been in business a couple of years. And usually they've been in business at least 5 years. And they've like, okay, you know what? I just thought I'd be working less hours by now. And they're saying, oh, once I get past this thing, once I get past that next thing, and that just never works. So when you do the Winner's Circle with us, we still find, hire, and onboard your first person in your win team for you. And then we help you train them, and we teach you how to do super toolkits, and you get to go in the hot seat and show us yours, and we correct them in live. So we're doing it and improving your workflow and systems and processes right there. And you're learning from others, and you get to meet some dynamic individuals, as well as super toolkits that we have worked on, for the last 10 years of our business. Sometimes I'll use them as an example and say, look, here's how we do this. So I can be on 300 podcasts in a year, our media super toolkit. But then I will hand that over as a free bonus and say, look, follow this and get on other podcasts. So we've got a lot of really well-developed bonuses that people absolutely say, if you just got that would be worth the price of admission. But it's really interactive, and we meet 3 times a month, and it's all kinds of goodies in there.
Awesome. All right. What my last question is for you is, how can somebody listening right now connect with you? What's the best way?
Yeah, you can reach out to me. I would say LinkedIn is probably the best. Connect me there and just tell me that you are a friend of Nikki's and you'll be a friend of mine. You can also check out free gift, GIFT from Kris, KRIS.com. I just put something special in there that we normally charge for, like a free version of my audio version of my book. So you might want to get there, because
get that. Say the link again. Say it again one more time.
Free gift from Kris.com, free GIFT from Kris, KRIS.com.
Go get that, you guys. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. And thank you for sharing your wisdom. I become a fan of you. I just love my interactions with you. You're you do just radiate positive energy, and you're just crushing everything that you're doing. It's really exciting to.
Well, if I ever get any award, you'll be giving the speech for okay. And this is my MC. Talk to Nikki.
Oh my gosh. I would love to actually give people awards all day long, because I just love people. And you're somebody I would definitely give an award to, for sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here. And for you, the listener, thank you so much for being here. If we haven't connected yet, I tend to hang out on LinkedIn and on Instagram. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear, what is your takeaway from what you got today? What's something that you're going to go and implement as a result of these brilliant concepts that Kris has shared, the structure that she has shared for you? Let's connect. And if you haven't joined the Sales Maven Society yet, come do that. That's my group coaching program. We'd love to have you in there. You can join right now by going to salesmavensociety.com. If you enter the coupon code 47trial, it'll take $100 off your first month. For the group coaching program, we'd love to have you in there with us. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for listening to Sales Maven. Visit us online at yoursalesmaven.com/maven for more resources to boost your confidence and skills.